On the 7th of July 2005, 4 suicide bombers attacked London's transport system and killed 52 people. Hundreds more were injured. Britain was changed in a single morning, but the question didn't end with what happened. It became what was already known. Welcome to Pulse, the beat at the heart of England. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to support our work. There's also a short companion book for this episode, 7/7 London Bombings, Could They Have Stopped It?, linked in the description. It goes into more information and detail than I can fit into the video, but mainly it's a way to support the channel. A bit like buying me a coffee, except you actually get something back. The 7/7 bombings are often remembered as sudden: a summer morning, commuters on the Underground, a buzz in Tavistock Square, then chaos, smoke, emergency sirens, missing people, and families waiting for calls that never came. But this series asks a harder question: not just what happened, what was already visible before it happened. Because after attacks like this, the establishment usually retreats into safe language, lessons learned, complex picture, intelligence gaps, operational pressure. All of that may be true. Intelligence work isn't magic. Police can't arrest people because they look suspicious. Agencies can't follow every extremist contact in the country. But official language also has another purpose. It protects institutions, it lowers the temperature, it turns human failure into process failure, it makes the unacceptable sound technical. So the question's simple: could they have stopped it? The public record doesn't show that MI5 knew the 7/7 plot was coming and simply allowed it to happen, or perhaps were more involved directly. That's up to you to decide for yourself, but we do know the answer isn't the clean establishment version, where the bombers arrived from nowhere and nobody could have done anything. Mohammad, Sidique, Khyam and Shehzad Tanweer weren't ghosts. They'd crossed the paths of earlier intelligence investigations, they'd been linked to people already under suspicion, they'd travelled to Pakistan, they'd appeared in fragments of intelligence, and before the 7th of July, those fragments weren't turned into a clear threat picture. That's where this story sits, not in a neat cover-up, not in a clean exoneration, in the grey zone where systems fail, agencies prioritise, names don't get matched, and dangerous men remain just outside the frame until it's too late. So here's what happened. On the morning of the 7th of July, 4 men travelled from Luton to London. Khyam, Tanweer and Hasib Hussain had driven down from West Yorkshire. Jermaine Lindsay travelled separately and joined them at Luton. They moved items between vehicles, put on rucksacks and took the train to King's Cross. At about 8:50, 3 bombs exploded on underground trains. Tanweer detonated his device near Aldgate. Khyam detonated his device near Edgware Road. Lindsay detonated his device between King's Cross and Russell Square. Almost an hour later, at about 9:47, Hussain detonated his device on a buzz in Tavistock Square. The explosives were homemade organic peroxide-based devices carried in rucksacks. Police later found the bomb factory at 18 Alexandra Grove in Leeds. The official account said the plot was probably self-financed and cost less than £8,000. That matters because this wasn't a vast operation with a huge financial trail. It was small, cheap, mobile and hidden in ordinary life. To detect something like that, you need pattern recognition, travel, associates, purchases, communications, previous contacts, local intelligence, small details that only matter if someone joins them. So, who were the 4 men? Mohammad Sidique Khan was born in West Yorkshire in 1974. He worked in youth and community roles and became one of the central figures in the group. Shehzad Tanweer was born in West Yorkshire in 1982. The official account says he became more religious from about 2002 and became close to Khan in early 2003. Hasib Hussain was born in West Yorkshire in 1986. He travelled to Hajj in Pakistan, and the official account says he'd shown extremist language at school. Jermaine Lindsay was born in Jamaica in 1985, moved to the UK as a child, converted to Islam, lived in Aylesbury and was believed to have been influenced by extremist preaching and recorded material. All 4 matter, but the prevention question mainly turns on Khan and Tanweer because they were the 2 who appeared before the attack in earlier intelligence material. The phrase known to the authorities gets thrown around almost after every terrorist attack. It sounds clear, it isn't. Known how? Known by name, known by face, known as a target, known as a contact, known as a man in a car, known as an alias, known as somebody in a blurry photograph, known in a way that could justify surveillance, or known in a way that only looks obvious after the bodies are counted. That distinction is crucial. None of the 4 attackers was identified before the 7th of July as a potential terrorist threat. MI5 didn't have specific intelligence warning that these 4 men were preparing to bomb London's transport system, but Khyam and Tanweer had appeared on the edge of Operation Crevice. Operation Crevice was a major investigation into a fertiliser bomb plot involving Omar, Khyam and others. Khyam was later convicted over that separate plot. Khyam and Tanweer were recorded meeting him during the earlier investigation. This is where the timeline tightens. In 2001, West Yorkshire Police had an image from a training camp. After 7/7, that image turned out to include Khyam. He wasn't identified at the time. In April 2003, a known extremist was seen in a car registered to Saddique. That link didn't lead to Khyam being treated as a major target. In February and March 2004, Khyam and Tanweer appeared in Operation Crevice surveillance. They weren't identified as Khyam and Tanweer then. They were unidentified men linked to Omar Khyam. They met Khyam on 2 known occasions after he'd become known to MI5 as an attack planner. That is not nothing. A future suicide bomber meeting a known attack planner should make any normal person sit up. But this is also where the official defence begins. The 2009 Intelligence and Security Committee review found that a key bomb-making discussion involving Mohammad, Khawaja and Omar Khyam took place on the 20th of February 2004. Khyam and Tanweer weren't present for that conversation. MI5 saw them as peripheral figures, not core targets. Their contact raised concern, but not enough in real time to move them to the top of the list. That word peripheral does a lot of work. Inside an intelligence agency, it may mean they weren't central to the immediate plot being investigated. Outside, after 52 people are dead, it sounds like a bureaucratic sleeping tablet. Peripheral to one plot does not mean harmless. Peripheral to one file does not mean irrelevant to the next attack. Still, intelligence agencies don't see the future, they see fragments. If they follow every contact of every target, they drown. If they don't, they may miss someone who matters. That's the ugly arithmetic of counter-terrorism. The official record says Khyam and Tanweer were classed as desirable rather than essential targets during Crevice-linked work. Plain English, worth knowing more about, but not urgent enough to dominate resources. And resources were an issue. MI5 and police were dealing with large volumes of intelligence, calls, numbers, surveillance, possible aliases, possible associates, and live threats. The security service described its position as dealing with the crocodiles nearest the boat. That phrase is revealing. It tells us they were chasing what looked most immediate. That may have been rational, but it also tells us the boat was crowded and the water was full. Khyam and Tanweer remained in that water. There were more fragments. In early 2004, detainee reporting referred to British men using pseudonyms who travelled to Pakistan and saw contact with Al-Qaeda figures. After 7/7, Khyam was identified from a press photograph, but a relevant photograph hadn't previously been shown to that detainee. That detail matters not because it proves the attack would have been stopped. It doesn't. But because it shows how thin the system could be at the exact point where identification mattered. A source can't identify a man from a photograph he isn't shown. A file can't connect a threat to a name nobody has matched. A warning sign can sit there uselessly if the process around it is weak. After the inquests, official action focused partly on making sure human sources were shown the best available photographs and that identification procedures were properly recorded. That's not a minor administrative tweak. It tells you there was a recognised weakness, the sort of weakness everybody agrees to fix once the disaster has already happened. Convenient timing as ever. Then came the Saddique problem. Between January and March 2005, intelligence referred to Saddique and Imran in connection with possible Afghanistan or Pakistan training and extremist views. Checks by MI5 and police produced no match before the attacks. After 7/7, Siddique was identified as Khyam. That is one of the central pressure points in this case. Before the attack, there was intelligence about Siddique. It wasn't connected to Mohammad Siddique Khan. After the attack, it was. That doesn't prove bad faith. Names vary, spellings vary, aliases and partial identities are difficult. Intelligence databases are not magic vending machines where you insert suspicion and receive certainty. But it does raise the obvious question: if Khan had been matched earlier, what would have happened? Would he have been escalated, watched, disrupted, interviewed, linked back to Crevice more seriously, or would he still have sat below the threshold? The public record doesn't fully answer that, and when official answers depend on what isn't public, trust becomes the product being sold. Now look at Pakistan. Khan travelled there in July 2003. The official account later assessed that he likely had some terrorist training. Khan and Tanweer also travelled to Pakistan between November 2004 and February 2005. The official account said it was likely they had contact with al-Qaeda figures, but the full extent of external direction remained unclear. That line matters. The record supports likely contact and possible training. It does not prove a simple command chain where al-Qaeda ordered the attack and directed every step. So this wasn't just 4 isolated men acting from nowhere, but it also wasn't fully established in the public record that they were controlled like soldiers by a foreign command structure. The more realistic picture is harder: domestic radicalisation, overseas contact, local networks, operational secrecy, and a cheap plot hidden inside normal movement. That's exactly the sort of threat the state needed to understand, and in 2005 the official record says the counter-terrorism community hadn't fully understood the threat from British citizens radicalising domestically. That is careful official language. Translated, it means the system was behind the curve. The attackers weren't foreign commandos slipping into Britain under cover of darkness. 3 were from West Yorkshire, 1 lived in Aylesbury. They moved through schools, youth work, gyms, shops, homes, cars, trains and airports. The threat wasn't over there. It was here, in ordinary British spaces, developing in a form the state had not learned to read properly. That does not mean everyone around them knew. It does not mean mosques, schools, relatives, neighbours or whole communities should be smeared by association. Collective blame is not evidence, it's laziness with a megaphone, but it does mean local intelligence mattered. The official reviews later stressed the need for richer local intelligence picture and closer work between MI5, police and special branches. That is another post-disaster admission dressed up as improvement. Before the attack, the national system did not have enough local texture. It saw parts of the network, but not the shape of it. Hussein's background shows the limit of this too. The Home Office account recorded that he'd used extremist language at school and became increasingly religious after travel abroad. That's not the same as evidence of a bomb plot. Schools are not MI5. Teachers cannot be expected to predict a future suicide bomber every time a pupil says something vile or extreme. But when you place that beside the wider picture, the question becomes cumulative. A training camp image, a vehicle link, meetings with Khyam, Pakistan travel, alias intelligence, extremist views, suspicious communications, bomb-making purchases, a reconnaissance trip to London. None of these alone automatically stops a plot. Together they look damning. The problem is that they were not together before 7/7, not in a way that mattered. On the 31st of March 2005, the first known purchase of bomb-making material took place. Between April and July, the group contacted individuals in Pakistan. The Home Office account said the content and identity of those contacts remained unknown, but the methods were suspicious. On the 29th of May 2005, the Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre reduced the UK threat level from severe general to substantial. In hindsight, that looks dreadful, but the Intelligence and Security Committee found a reduction was not unreasonable on the intelligence available at the time. JTAC still warned that an attack could happen without warning. That is the maddening distinction. The state knew the general threat existed. It did not know this plot existed. A general warning is not the same as actionable intelligence. If the warning is someone may attack somewhere, somehow, you don't know which door to kick in, which car to stop, which phone to seize, or which rucksack to open. Still, threat levels are not meaningless. They shape urgency. They influence posture. They tell institutions how hot the room is. Even if the May 2005 reduction didn't directly cause the failure, it remains part of the official atmosphere before the attack. Then on the 21st of June 2005, MI5 correspondents with the West Yorkshire Police were still optimistic that continued work might identify Ibrahim and Zubair. They weren't identified before 7/7. After the attacks, Zubair was identified as Mohammad Shakil. Again, unresolved names, ongoing work, no match in time. On the 28th of June 2005, Khan, Tanweer and Lindsay made a reconnaissance journey to London following a similar route to the one later used in the attack. That fact is chilling now. It was not understood then. The final days were simple and devastating. Khan, Tanweer and Hussein left Leeds in a Nissan Micra. Lindsay arrived separately at Luton. They met, transferred items, put on rucksacks, travelled to King's Cross and separated. Then the bombs went off. Afterwards came the official machinery. The Home Office published its official account in 2006. The Intelligence and Security Committee also reported in 2006. After the Operation Crevice convictions in 2007, the questions sharpened because the Crevice link became harder to ignore. In 2009, the ISC published its review, asking directly whether 7/7 could have been prevented. Its conclusion was cautious. It did not say MI5 had knowingly missed an obvious plot. It did not say police had a clear chance to stop the attack and failed. It found that, on the intelligence available at the time, it could not criticise the judgments made by MI5 and police. That conclusion must be reported fairly, but it should not be swallowed whole like communion wine. An oversight committee is not the same thing as a full public inquiry. Redacted intelligence is not the same thing as public transparency, and when agencies are judged partly through secret material, ordinary people are being asked to trust the very system that failed to identify the threat. That does not prove a cover-up, but it does show why some families and survivors were not satisfied, because the same record that defends the agencies also confirms the uncomfortable facts. Khan and Tanweer had appeared in earlier intelligence. They had met a known attack planner. They were classed below the highest priority level. Names and identities remained unresolved. Source photograph procedures needed improvement. Domestic radicalisation was not fully understood. Local and national intelligence needed better joining. So the official answer is not nothing to see here. It's more like this. There were fragments, but not enough to justify the actions needed to stop the attack. That may be true. It is still a brutal answer for families who lost people on trains and buses. The inquests led by Lady Justice Hallett are another important boundary. In 2011, she did not find that failings by any organisation or individual caused or contributed to the deaths. That means the evidence did not justify saying that different action by MI5, police or another body would probably have saved those 52 people. But she did issue recommendations, including around photograph handling, source identification and record keeping, so we're left with two truths: no proven causative failure, but procedures that needed fixing. That's where accountability becomes slippery. The institution says you cannot prove we caused it. The public says, then why did the system need changing after it happened? Both can be true, but only one of them tends to get the official stamp. So let's be precise. If the claim is that MI5 knew the 7/7 plot and allowed it to happen, the public record does not support that. If the claim is that the attackers were complete unknowns and there were no warning signs, the public record does not support that either. The stronger case is narrower. The system saw pieces of Khan and Tanweer before 7/7. It did not understand their significance. It did not prioritise them highly enough. It did not connect the fragments in time, and it did not have the local intelligence, source identification systems, or domestic radicalisation understanding needed to turn suspicion into prevention. That's not proof of conspiracy, it is a documented failure of recognition. Could more have been done? Yes. Khan could have perhaps been identified earlier from the training camp image, vehicle link, Crevice material and Saddique reporting. Tanweer's contact with the Crevice network could perhaps have been treated as more significant. West Yorkshire local intelligence could have been richer. Source identification could have been stronger. Record keeping could have made later accountability clearer. But could the attack itself realistically have been stopped? That's the harder test. To stop it, agencies would have needed to identify the men, understand their significance, escalate them, place them under effective scrutiny, detect the plot, and intervene before the devices reach London. That chain had too many weak links. The plot was cheap, the group was small, the materials were available, the intelligence was fragmentary. The strongest pre-attack links were not specific to the London transport attack, and the public record does not show that any agency had intelligence saying these men were preparing this operation. So the verdict is this: 7/7 was not realistically preventable as a specific plot on the public evidence. But it was not a bolt from the blue either. That distinction matters. It means the establishment does not get to pretend there was nothing to see. It also means critics should not pretend the whole plot was obvious in advance. The state did not know the attack plan, it did not identify the cell, it did not have a confirmed warning about the London transport attacks. If you look at the official story, it did have pieces, and those pieces show a system that was not sharp enough for the threat it was facing. Khan was not invisible, Tanweer was not invisible, the threat from British Islamist extremism was not invisible, the Crevice connection was real, the Pakistan travel was real, the aliases were real, the missed connections were real. That's the line. Not realistically preventable, not fully unforeseeable, and not answered in a way that should make anyone feel comfortable. Because after 52 people were killed and hundreds were injured, the public was effectively told this. The agencies did not have enough to stop it, but enough existed to raise serious questions after it happened. For ordinary people, that sounds like contradiction. For intelligence agencies, it is the difference between data and proof, association and threat, contact and target. But the public is allowed to ask whether those distinctions protected people or protected the institution once the damage was done. That's not anti-police, it's not anti-security service, it's not conspiracy thinking, it is the minimum standard in a country where commuters paid the price. And before we finish, just another quick note on the short companion book. It's linked in the description. It's got more detail than this video, but I don't want to pretend it's some grand product pitch. It's mainly a straightforward way to support Pulse, like buy me a coffee, but with a proper companion read in return. So what do you think? Were the warning signs around Khan and Tanweer strong enough that 7/7 should be seen as possibly preventable? Or does that only look obvious with hindsight? When official reviews say decisions were reasonable at the time, is that enough accountability after 52 people were killed? And what's the wider lesson here? Better surveillance, better local intelligence, better information sharing, or a state more honest about what it can't protect us from? And just so you know, the next episode of Could They Have Stopped It will look at the murder of Rigby.